I'm not going to talk to you about that, but we're either going to get a deal or it's going to be unfortunate for them.
And you said today 10 days. Have you given them a deadline firm to make a deal?
I would think that would be enough time, 10, 15 days, pretty much maximum.
A narrow window for peace and a widening path to war. In the last 24 hours, tensions between Washington and Tehran have surged to their highest level in years, as Donald Trump confirmed he is considering limited military strikes against Iran. A 10-day ultimatum now looms, and the Middle East is holding its breath.
The U.S. right now is building up a very impressive military armada, and it's meant to send a very clear message to Iran and its government that the U.S. is not, or at least the Trump administration, is not going to spend years and years negotiating to get a deal that the Trump administration would say is not very good. They want to put pressure on Iran to say, you need to make a deal now. And there is some reporting emerging over the last few hours that there might be some outlines of a deal coming forward. But the military pressure is designed to make sure that Iran doesn't play the game that it is accused of over the last many decades of stringing out negotiations to sort of an endless degree, so that no deal ever comes, or at least it wears down the opposition to get a deal that is much more beneficial to Iran.
Despite the drumbeats of war, a narrow window for diplomacy remains. Tehran is drafting a formal counterproposal expected within the next 48 to 72 hours, aimed at breaking the deadlock. However, with the US demanding zero enrichment and Israel moving toward active joint strike planning, diplomats across Europe and the Gulf warn that the region is sliding toward a conflict not seen since 2003.
The military buildup by the United States in the region is really intense. It has deployed aircraft carrier strike groups in the Persian Gulf, and fighter jets are ready. And I think that the United States aims and intends to carry out a large-scale operation against Iran, unlike the 12-day war with Israel. In that war, the United States only targeted Fordo nuclear site and took part late in those days of war. But this time, I think it intends to carry out operations against Iranian military targets as well as political leadership, and Trump had threatened many times to target Iranian interests as well as Iran's supreme leader.
The world's largest aircraft carrier, USS Gerald R. Ford, has been spotted transiting the Strait of Gibraltar, heading toward the Middle East, part of the largest US military buildup in the region in decades. Aircraft carriers, warships, jets, all moving into position. Even as forces mobilize, diplomacy is struggling to survive.
See, this situation which is developing in the Middle East, or West Asia as you may call it, this situation is very volatile, because right now whenever you see such a massive concentration of force, and you can imagine when two aircraft carriers are there and a carrier strike groups are operating in this area, a huge complement of warships, and more than 250 aircrafts are there in this region, as well as in Diego Garcia, the B-2 and B-52 bombers have been deployed, and Tomahawk missiles have been armed right now. The submarines are in place, the nuclear submarine is also there. So we see a very serious war-like situation. Much depends upon the talks which are going on with Iran and the United States.
Iran says it is preparing a formal counter-proposal expected within the next 48 to 72 hours, in a last-ditch attempt to break the deadlock. But talks have stalled on core demands. Washington insists on zero uranium enrichment, while Tehran calls enrichment and missile development non-negotiable sovereign rights. Both sides sticking to their red lines.
And I believe, American economy doesn't permit to go in for a long haul or long war. I don't think, that is... American is still negotiating with Iran. Let's hope, something comes out, some negotiated settlement comes out. Iranians have also submitted a proposal which dealing with the concerns of the American administration. So let's wait and see what happens,
Behind the scenes, Israel is watching closely. Israeli officials believe the gap between the US and Iran is unbridgeable and are preparing for possible joint military action with Washington. If it happens, it would mark the second US-Israeli strike on Iran in less than a year. Iran is not backing down. President Masoud Pezeshkian says Iran will not bow to external pressure, warning that any attack will be met with retaliation against US bases across the region. Tehran has also taken a dramatic step, branding the naval and air forces of European Union states as terrorist organizations, after Europe designated Iran's Revolutionary Guards the same.
Well, the European position has been made up of negativity, complacency, and passivity. Europe has for many decades now been very passive in the face of different threats that it has faced. And in large part, it has taken 4 years of war in Ukraine to make it aware that there are serious possibilities of conflict even in its own backyard. And so Europe has been very adept at talking problems to death and trying to resolve it through ultra long-term diplomacy. And so Europe is looking at the Iranian issue through that lens of passivity and attempting to resolve it through conversations. I really don't think that they see the Iranian issue as something that is a real threat. I don't think that they perceive it as an existential crisis. They also look at it through the lens of complacency, again, through that lens of not seeing the Iranian threat as a threat. I don't think that they have truly seen the consequences and the possibilities of a nuclear Iran. And so they're not willing to take very strong, assertive efforts in order to address it. They do believe that it's a matter of diplomacy. But also, they see it as through the lens of negativity, and that is really a very reflexive attitude towards Donald Trump. Europe was fine and okay with working with the Obama administration during those years and during the years of developing the JCPOA. And they had a large amount of cooperation with Obama because he was very European in his outlook and his approach to resolving conflict. Yeah, when it comes to Donald Trump, certainly he has created a lot of negative feelings and a lot of negative a very negative work environment for them. And so I think some of their denial of basing rights and other actions comes from a basic rejection of Trump himself. They just simply don't want to cooperate on anything that is important to Donald Trump, and that is a very unfortunate setback, and it is why it's important to maintain good international relations, especially in a crisis mode like this.
The confrontation is widening. The Strait of Hormuz, the route for a fifth of global oil, could become a flashpoint.
The impact on the whole region will be really significant because Iran has warned for many times that any attack against its sovereign territory or leadership will be costly for the United States and its allies. So Iran has many options at hand, and this may include targeting the US bases in the region with surprise, like the previous times, attacking US assets in the region, also by the help of allies in the region, for example by the Lebanese Hezbollah or Yemenis. It may target economic infrastructure in the region, and this will be really costly for not just Iran but all the entire nations of the region. There is another option on hand for Iran, and that is closure of the Strait of Hormuz, and that can be conducted by mining the strait and targeting any ship passing by.
Experts say that the oil-producing Gulf countries are preparing for a possible military confrontation that they fear could spin out of control and destabilize the Middle East.
There is a move now by Iran, and it has threatened to blockade this Strait of Hormuz because it is largely an area in which oil supplies are flowing through. So the impact of India will be that in case this Strait of Hormuz has been blocked, there will be a surge in the oil prices, a surge in the transportation cost, a surge in the insurance cost, as well as a rise of inflation in all those countries which are going to be affected by the movement of the energy resources. A second important aspect here is that for how long can this Strait of Hormuz be blocked? Because in my assessment, it will be only a temporary kind of a situation, because in case the United States decides to reopen this Strait of Hormuz, even if mines have been laid down by the Iranians, I think they'll be able to do that. So I think this is a short-term kind of a strategy which Iran has to disrupt the traffic in this area.
2 rounds of Iran-US talks have stalled on core issues, from uranium enrichment to missiles and sanctions relief. Reportedly, when Omani mediators delivered an envelope from the US side containing missile-related proposals, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi refused even to open it and returned it.
The US doesn't want to get into a war-like situation, because if you look at the objective, what is the political objective or the political aim of Donald Trump? A political aim is a regime change. He will not be able to carry out this regime change even if he launches airstrikes here. So that part of the aim is lost. There would be drone strikes from within Iran, because try to understand here, there are a large number of Jew population within Iran, and they are a source of intelligence which Mossad and the CIA have been using over a period of time. So I foresee that an attempt will be made by the US, in case negotiations don't fructify, to target the political leadership. The IRGC headquarters and the leadership, the air defense centers, the command control centers. So I visualize this kind of strategy being orchestrated by the United States Armed Forces.
US Secretary of State Marco Rubio is due to meet Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on 28th of February to discuss Iran. A senior US official said it would be mid-March before all US forces were in place. But the question remains, what is the end game? Is Washington aiming to cripple Iran's nuclear program to deter future threats, or to push for something far more ambitious, a regime change? The core US demand remains unchanged: no uranium enrichment on Iranian soil. Iran, for its part, says it must keep its nuclear capability and refuses to discuss its ballistic missiles. It denies planning to build a nuclear weapons arsenal.
Well, it's not according to me. It's according to what the U.S. and the Iranians want. The U.S. sort of at its baseline wants Iran's nuclear program controlled. They want it to into a position where it cannot become a weapons program. There doesn't seem to be any objection by the United States or other nations to nuclear power being in the country. But it's any program that can potentially develop nuclear weapons, and then also the vehicles to deliver those is just going to be unacceptable not only to the United States, but many of its regional allies and partners. So there's a framework in which a deal like that could emerge. How that is going to happen remains to be seen.
With Iran's leadership under Ayatollah Ali Khamenei showing resilience, even allies question whether strikes can alter Tehran's course. These growing geopolitical tensions far away from India can also impact our homes and our pockets.
It will be only a temporary kind of a situation, because in case the United States decides to reopen this Strait of Hormuz, even if mines have been laid down by the Iranians, I think they'll be able to do that. So I think this is a short-term kind of a strategy which Iran has to disrupt the traffic in this area, and it won't have very great effects in my assessment, because enough of reserves are there. And even if you see UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, which will get affected, by this route blockage, but they have inbuilt reserves available in their own country to sustain this thing. So I think it will be a temporary setback. It won't be a permanent setback.
It will have huge impact on India for two reasons. One, oil prices will go up, and we import almost 85% to 90% oil from outside the countries, and mostly the oil comes from Persian Gulf region, that is from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Oman. These are the areas. It will have direct impact on our budget, revenues, and secondly, because our 1 million, no, not 1 million, sorry, 10 million Indians are working in the Gulf region, in all these countries, and they send around 30 to 40 billion dollar annually as remittances. Then we have a bilateral trade with these countries about 150 to 200 billion dollar. Investments, are also coming from this region to India. Saudi Arabia has already promised that would invest $100 billion in next few years. And so is Qatar, so is UAE, all these places. If the war, there are chances that the war might spread into the region. Iranians have made it categorically clear that if they are attacked, they will also attack American bases or try to disrupt oil supplies. So these are the two things, and they have the capability, they can do it, So that is a problem. So therefore, India's interest is, peace and stability. India wants peace and stability to be maintained in this region.
For now, the clock is ticking. Military forces are moving. Red lines are hardening between Iran and the United States.